back at St. John's Cemetery, Parramatta, and come back for our daytime ep. Just wanted to give people a bit of a different perspective on what the place looks like and what the oldest cemetery in the country looks like, in the country of Australia. There's a lot of First Fleet, basically First Fleeters they call them. These were people that came out here as convicts, and they were given somewhere usually between 7 and 14 years here in Australia, and then once they did their time they were able to be sent back. A lot of them, well, the vast majority of these people, they didn't actually go back. They didn't actually go back. They decided to make Australia their home. In fact, as I said, the First Fleet, which he is one of the people that were on the actual first of those ships that landed in Australia on which is actually Australia Day, 26th of January 1788, and Mary Kelly was passed away in 1820. But so what happened was that these when they landed, okay, so it was Captain Arthur Phillip. It was at the head of all the fleets, and they came into the what is today, it's at Kurnell area there. It's and where the airport is at Mascot, specifically Botany Bay. And once they landed at Botany Bay, excuse me, it was quickly made apparent that the water supply there wasn't right. It was salty, basically. It was it wasn't fit for human consumption. So very quickly they've realised that this is something that needs to be. We need to find water. We need to find it. We need to find it now. Basically, we have no time to waste. So they didn't. They sent a small group of sailors in the orders of Arthur Phillip, was sent to follow the coastline and seek out fresh water so that it could be made officially a place that they were able to alight and were able to set up camp. It didn't take them very long to find that spot. So if they follow the coastline from Botany Bay, you will come to a position of an open. That's basically the opening of Sydney Harbour, Sydney Cove. They followed it in, and they went in basically to the point where you have George Street, main street of Sydney CBD. It ends at the Rocks and very near to today's Circular Quay station area. So they found the water there, and that water ran directly down, and still to this day runs directly, albeit underneath the George Street, what was to become George Street, and that water was coming from an underground spring situated, I believe at the end of Hyde Park, possibly the Domain. So that was what they did. They found that, and evidently that water, that supply of water, is still running to this day. It runs in some very old convict-built drain system that's underneath George Street. Tours can be taken under there. I believe it's via it's pretty exclusive. It's via a kind of a lottery thing through the water board of Sydney Water, and so this what they call the tank stream gave them the opportunity to sustain their life and to start building up and growing crops, and water's life, so keep them all alive. Very hard days, but anyway, so they went. So these sailors who were picked, they made their way back around the coastline from that area at the end of George Street and Circular Quay. They made their way back around to the ship where Arthur Phillip was, and he was alerted to the good news, and under the watchful eye of the French ships, who were hot on their tail, and it was captained by La Perouse, which is a suburb today named after him in that specific area of the Botany Bay, Kurnell. It's like Long Bay, really, they call it. So La Perouse, they were watching very closely to see, what their English were going to do. They weren't willing to watch too closely, but from a distance, they knew that the English had some reason to quite quickly pack up and move on, which they did. They took everybody in the ship and whatever other vessels were with them, and they made their way around to the Sydney Harbour area, where, as I say, where Circular Quay is, and that was where they stayed, and that was where it began. In today it's still there, known as the Rocks. It was to then, and from there and out to this suburb. This is the oldest cemetery in Australia, Parramatta. This was the second point, and it was only within weeks that they had came up the river, which is basically following once you get into Sydney Harbour. If you continue to follow that, if you continue to follow it, it becomes what's today known as the Parramatta River. And so along there they went, and came upon what is now known as Parramatta Park, which is just to my left, this direction from here. And so they were able to come upon what was described, and is actually still there, is a natural amphitheatre. And it seemed like a good point, and a good point to sort of create what was to be the farmland needed to get the crops growing, to sustain the people that arrived at the beginning, and which they did. and then in the next basically a little over a year, there was what we've described in the last video, the first headstone of an individual of that group of people that was buried here, named man by the name of Henry Dodd. He was the first person buried in sort of a Christian Anglo-Saxon sense, not by the not, you know, without it's not, you know, obviously the Aboriginal indigenous people were first, and they were something that went on for many thousands of years, but just in that regard, he was the first guy that was buried, and the first official ceremony given to in the sense of a Church of England's Anglo-Saxon sense, to an individual in the country, Henry Dodd. And Henry Dodd was instrumental in the implementing of farming techniques that worked, because the place was, and still is, quite a drought susceptible piece of land all around here. The whole country is really, and so it was very difficult, and they failed a few different times to get a decent crop going. But thanks to Dodd, that all changed, and so he was very, very highly regarded for that. And I'll just come up here. There's somebody who I just saw their graves before. It's quite elaborate. I believe it's one of the ones up here in their own. It's quite a large one. It's not just a headstone. It's Samuel Marsden. Now, Samuel Marsden was a reverend, and he was quite a, I guess he was quite a well-known character of the day, for a number of reasons. He was called the Flogging Parson due to the fact that he didn't mind giving him a bit of a beating, unfortunately, for indiscretions made. He was a large land holder in this area. Like, he owned, basically, back in the day, it was approximately there were four, the whole area and a couple of surrounding suburbs was broken into 4 pieces, and he was the owner of one of those pieces of land. And he was also, he was instrumental in a few different things, not all bad, but I think he was quite a tyrant if he was ever felt slighted, or if he felt his authority was at any time trying to be undermined by his subordinates. So yeah, that was Mr. Reverend Samuel Marsden, and I'm going to find his stone now, because, as I said, it's in regards to others, it's quite a regal sort of a memorial, if you will. I believe there's so many so many people really in here, some of them characters, but there's so many influential people in this area, and really in the country in the beginning that were, well, they were influential and in many ways, some of them coming from being sent out here without them actually wanting to leave England for crimes, and turning things around to the point where they left lasting legacies that endure to this day. There's individuals here who are also within the area. They're memorialised by street names, different sort of things. Parks is another one, and I think it's important that these people are remembered. One of us will put a little a monologue together regarding some of these individuals. I'll make some notes, and I'll share them also, because I think it's important that the people's story be told and not forgotten. And if you're interested in this type of a thing, which we are, there'll be plenty more of it. It's a split channel. It's historic, and also it is for the paranormal investigative side of things, which are both things that interest us. And so we're going to keep going. Hopefully we can get an interest out of someone out there, some people out there, wherever you are in the world. So yeah, like they say, I hope you like the videos. Please subscribe, hit the bell, all the things that they say, and stay tuned. Here we have Samuel Marsden and his wife, the aforementioned flogging parson, but also he was a pioneer in the structure of the colony, and also, he's left a lasting legacy. Love him or hate him, and I believe there were more that loved him than hated him. He's certainly of significance to think that anyone who's left us, basically. And what was the year that Samuel Marsden died? It was 1838. So there you go. Anyone who passed away in 1838 that we're still talking about in July of 2021 must have done something right, or I guess some of them are infamous, but in this respect, there's a legacy that he's left, and he was instrumental in making the place what it was, and to an extent what it is today.
Unable to get to the ones in the corners due to the grass. It's difficult to see any of the headstones. It's quite a lot of grass. Still as noisy during the daytime as it is at night. Even without the trains, you've got trucks and cars. Helicopters. There's a little one that we may have missed the first time. That one looks like it says oldest known grave in Australia, Henry Dodd. But Dodd was somewhere else. Down here, I believe. Yes. I'll have a look at it in daytime. And more grass. They've said due to being unable to maintain the cemetery. It does appear they've done somewhat of maintenance. It's just that some of the corners haven't been maintained, so we can't get into the old ones at the back there. But when it has been maintained and we can walk all the way to the back without obstacle, we will be back. Because there's a lot of history here. And noise. Lots of noise. Go up to where it has been mowed. So this looks to be just a stone to let us know that he's here, but he is down from there. There's not much more that you can see from this mowed area. And this is John Harris, surgeon who purchased land that is now known as Harris Park. Which is a suburb next door to Parramatta. As you can see, they've mowed a little bit here. Just unable to get into all of the area. Up there. As you can see, the depth of the cemetery is quite large. It's just a shame that there's quite a bit you can't get to at this stage. But once COVID has ended, we'll be back and be able to shoot more. As there's quite a lot of history here. And we believe everyone should know about it. Here we have the grave of Reverend Samuel Marsden, also known as the Flogging Parson. Residing nearby to this area, he found the decapitated body of old Neddy, who'd been murdered by McManus. Many First Fleeters have been buried here. This was known as the First Fleet Cemetery. Many elaborate graves here. The earliest grave being 1790, when the cemetery was established. And obviously Dodd, Henry Dodd, in 1791 was the first funeral in Australia. It's very interesting to come out here and have a little look at how old these graves are and who were buried here, some famous people. It's well worth having a look.
Made.